Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Live Econ Guy. In this video, I want to talk about the student debt relief that was recently on the news quite a bit. So, if you've been following along, the Supreme Court made a decision, and this was about $10,000 to $20,000 of federal student loan debt being forgiven for anyone who has an outstanding balance right now. So that didn't go through because the Supreme Court shot it down. So I just want to kind of take a look at a couple of things. So this is all student loans in the country, roughly 1.8 trillion, and this debt forgiveness, if it went through, it would have reduced the amount by roughly 430 billion. So it would have reduced this to roughly say like 1.3 trillion or so. So it didn't go through. And by the way, I also want to bring this up because Congress doesn't support this either. So a couple of weeks ago, the U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives actually voted to not allow for this to happen, which the president then vetoed, obviously, because this was the president's kind of campaign promise that he would do some debt relief for anyone who has student loan debts. And by the way, it's interesting for me that this didn't happen when the president's party had a trifecta, which means that they controlled the U.S. Senate, both the House of Representatives and the Senate, essentially all of Congress, and obviously the president held office the first 2 years of his when he was elected. So it's really interesting why they didn't codify that in law back then. So next year is going to be elections year, and the current president is running for re-election, so he's trying to take another route for some kind of debt relief for borrowers. But back to kind of what happened. So this didn't go through, and I was kind of interested, like, what kind of economic impacts would this have? So I found this article by Independent Institute. So I did some research about them. It looks like they're slightly right-leaning, but they're more libertarian. So they're kind of taking kind of both views into consideration. So this is from August 26, 2022, and it reads that student loan handout, it's illegal, inflationary, immoral. So this was the president's kind of proposal that was shot down by the Supreme Court. So they say that something like this would be illegal, so the law doesn't actually allow it. And this is the part that's really interesting for me, because $430 billion being forgiven is essentially something that will end up coming out of our federal budget over the next couple of years if it went through. So it would have resulted in higher deficits because over the next couple of years, the U.S. government the Treasury Department would have had to pay for this. So they're saying for giving student loans increases incentives for college to raise tuition. That's kind of a cascading effect. And fees more aggressively, so students will be emboldened to borrow more, thinking I will never have to pay the loans back. So yeah, something like this, depending on your, economic kind of perspectives, this would be indeed inflationary, immortal, inequitable. They're saying this Independent Institute is saying that, someone making $250,000 a year, a couple living together, why should they have student loan debt forgiveness? I mean, they make enough as is, and it would be the same, for example, for someone that makes $50,000. So it's they're saying it's inequitable, and I think it is. Responsible, irrational, idiotic. So pretty much these guys, this Independent Institute, they're criticizing the plan, and they thought back then that it's a bad idea. So I don't know. I read a lot that it's kind of party politics taking leading these decisions, but at the same time, when you see that the U.S. Senate, which is currently not controlled by the opposing party, wants to make this debt relief not happen, when you see this, it's kind of you kind of start to think like this has nothing to do with the Supreme Court and the current composition. And I also think that the Supreme Court should not be making a decision costing hundreds of billions of dollars. I definitely think the U.S. Congress should be the one that appropriates that kind of money. So I guess there's going to be a lot of different perspectives, especially for people who have student loans and who didn't get this relief, or for people who didn't have student loans and recently paid off their student loans. So it could be both ways. I'm interested to know what everyone thinks, kind of what is your situation? How did this impact you? What did you think about it? Do you think that this would have been a kind of a inflationary kind of shock to the economy if the U.S. Treasury did end up picking up this bill and essentially causing more budget deficits in the future? Anyways, that's kind of my perspective of what happened. I also mentioned this in my previous video where I was talking about the pause of the student loan payments ending in October and interest starting to accumulate in September. So if you didn't see that, definitely encourage you to check that out, kind of an analysis of that. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day.